Money Magicians. How are you? So, I wanted to take a moment to debrief on Nicole's interview. Don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to take a look at it because um, I really would love to hear your opinion and what you think, right? So she was talking about how to negotiate a higher raise and also how to get a better salary and make sure that you have an annual increase. So when I started out working, I didn't know how to negotiate for my salary. And actually, even when I did learn about negotiations at business school and then having to go and negotiate for a salary when I did get a job eventually, after being unable to get a job for 2 years during my entire spree of being in debt and having run a company and then my company going broke. My first company totally went bust. And I think from there, I learned a lot about the importance of negotiating for your prices, but I still couldn't understand how to negotiate for a salary, right? Like, how do you convince someone that you're worth X amount and not Y, right? Why should you get this amount and not that amount? And I think for me, that was something that I struggled with in the working world. So that's why I brought Nicole on, because I think that some of these things are things that we don't know how to go about it and nobody tells us. And what I genuinely liked was her suggestion to do a spreadsheet and to list all the ways in which you've brought value to the company and actually give something and explain how you've like the monetary value that your action has brought into the company, right? So I think that's really, really powerful to be able to say, well, I did this and this led to X amount in revenue and this is why I deserve the raise, or I did this and this led to a decline in costs and expenses and this is why I deserve a raise, right? So I think having that is really, really powerful. And I also love how she said, well, if you want an annual increase every year, you might want to think of changing jobs, right? And then going into, in your new job, explaining explaining that you would like something in the contract, that you would like X percentage increase in salary every year. See, now these are things that I never learned, right? So I think that that's super, super powerful. And it's something that you really should think about if you're in the working world. And it's a great way to figure out, and I think it makes it easier for you to figure out where you're going to be in, say, 5 years, because then you can start planning in terms of 5 years, and your raise and your salary increase is no longer dependent on someone else because you've negotiated for it. And I think that's the key. And the thing that stops us from negotiating for our own salaries is that we're scared, right? We're scared that they'll say, well, you're not worth it, or they'll go with another candidate, which is why doing the inner work is so important, because you need to already step into any negotiation, any salary negotiation, knowing your own value. Which brings me to the entrepreneurs in the group, right? I know that for us, the big thing is, how do I charge for my products and services? And I've done so many blog posts around charging what you're worth. But since this year, I decided, okay, I'm going to put my entire goal on blast, and all I want is to be able to retire within the next 24 months. So that's my challenge to myself, well, semi-retire anyway, and I'm just challenging myself. So that means that I'm going into these places and spaces where I'm having interesting conversations with women that are doing like insanely amazing things in terms of their businesses. And one of the, so I joined this other group where you pay a monthly fee on Facebook. And one of the coaches on there, well, I'm no longer part of the group because I decided to just hire a full-time coach, right? Because I was like, well, I can just do that. But anyway, because I sometimes prefer to work one-on-one with people. So, because I think coaches also need coaches, because we need a place to debrief. And also when you're going after big goals, and I'm such a big fan of this, is that when you're going after big goals, you need a support system, and you need someone that will hold you accountable and really work with you to make sure that you achieve that goal. So after this coach, I totally plan to get an even more intense coach. But anyway, long and short of this is that I was listening to this woman, and she said, actually, charging what you're worth is BS. Now stick with me, because I've done so many blog posts about this, right? And charging what you're worth as an entrepreneur. And she said something interesting. She said, you don't charge what you're worth, you charge what feels expansive to you. Not expensive with an E, like, oh, something's expensive. No, we don't mean that. It means like this idea of you're expanding. So what is it that feels like it's a really expansive fee that would like really help you expand? And I know this is a big thing for a lot of us, right? Because the greatest fear is that people will say, well, I'm not going to pay that much. Well, she's too expensive, which is exactly what happened when Lebo posted something about the Wealthy Money Retreat that's coming up here in April in Thailand. And people were like, oh, that's so expensive, etc., you know. So they had like all reasons as to why the retreat was a no-go and why it was expensive. But let me tell you what I've learned along this pricing journey. So one of the things that I always tell the Money Magic students is, actually, when I started off the Creating Money Magic course, and there are some students that will attest to this, I started pricing it at like 1,000 Rand, right? And I gave lifetime access at 1,000 Rand. And people then were still like, oh, it's so expensive, and they wouldn't buy. I sold less charging at 1,000 Rand than I do now at the price that I charge. And a lot of that has nothing to do with pricing. A lot of that has to do with me and the evolution that I went through. So let me explain what I mean by that and why the inner work becomes so crucial. So the big thing was I was charging at 1,000 Rand because I believed that no one would buy. So at the end, I started creating that reality, and I was attracting those people that were not able to buy. And also the way that I was showing up to sell course was very much apologetic, was, oh, I'm so sorry to even be charging this 1,000 Rand. I hope that you'll buy, you know, kind of thing. And in my mindset, there was a lot of that and a lot of fear that people are never going to buy at this price, right? So, and I didn't understand the value that I brought. So over time, the more I started to understand the value, and I started to do a lot of the inner work and started doing a lot of work with my spirit of money, the more I was told to increase the price. But in increasing the price, I had to understand, what is the value that this course brings? What is the value that I bring? And also, as I was doing that, I was busy increasing the value and adding more things. So when I started showing up to talk about the course, whole different mindset, right? It's like now the way I show up to talk about the course is so different to the way I used to show up at 1,000 Rand. And you would think it would be the opposite. But what it was that I started to understand what it is that I bring to the table and what it is that people that do the Money Magic course get from doing the course, right? And it's been the same with my coaching packages. So at first, when I started coaching, I was really, and I didn't know how to really explain to people, this is what I do, and this is what you can expect after 3 months of working with me, and just, you know, show up for that. And I think a lot of it is we tend to think, so when I think of what Nisha was saying about charging what you're worth being BS, I started to understand that in many ways, it's that as you expand as a person and start to understand the value that you bring to the table, obviously what you start, your worth even changes, your concept of what you're worth changes. And she said something interesting, that before we even start out, we need to understand that what we are worth is priceless. No one can ever pay for that, so your worth and what you bring to the table is priceless. Now it's about just finding a way to tailor it and say, this is truly what I bring, and these are the results that I've been able to get for people with this particular price. So if people pay X amount, this is the results that they get, which is exactly what I told people when they were like, oh, the retreat is super expensive. And I was like, I actually don't feel it's expensive at all, because I know that I'm going to hike up the price. Why? Because I just spent an entire week this week developing new meditations, and these meditations have completely killed me in terms of sleep. They've taken so much in terms of my ability, in terms of exhaustion, doing everything. So I know, because I know exactly what my students are going to get when they come to the retreat and they do the work. So it's the same with you. When you show up and you're trying to price your product and services, just consider, don't think in terms of what people will afford. Because what I've learned on the journey is that the people that see the value are more than willing to pay for it. And the people that don't see your value are not your people. You don't have to stress about that. Your kind of people will find you. They will resonate with you. They will want you. So I'm not really concerned about the people that go, oh, it's so expensive, because those are not really my kinds of people. My people are my students that have seen the value, that they go, oh my gosh, I pay this much and I get like triple, quadruple, even 5 times what I paid for in, say, 4 or 5 months. This is an amazing investment. Count me in, right? So those are my kinds of people, and I've already made it and I already know it within myself, So I understand the people that I'm going for. And people may shift over time. Like, I know that as they get to know me and they get to hear the students and everything, they start to see what the value that you bring to the table really and truly is. But then it shouldn't be dependent on will people buy, because that comes from this place of fear and scarcity, right? And it's the same thing with the salary that I never understood when I was going for jobs. Like, I would just literally take what was given. I'd be scared and I would know, damn, like I deserve at least twice this amount of money every month, but I wouldn't take it. And I would end up so resentful, but I would take whatever I was given, the half, and I would know that my friends are making double that, and even people that didn't have my degrees would be making twice that in the company. So whenever I'd find out, I'd get really frustrated and I would quit. But that's because I just didn't know how to articulate my value. So I think before even going into any negotiation, it's about understanding, what is it that you bring to the table? Why should people work? Why should this company hire you at this price? What can you give at this price, right? Because I think the worst thing that I did for me is I would always get the job and then have to get like part-time waitressing, this job. So I'd end up with like 3 jobs all in all, because I didn't know how to negotiate, whereas all my peers would just have the 1 job and be happy. And also a lot of that was just me not understanding how to articulate my own value and what it is that I bring to the table. And I think it's the same with us as entrepreneurs. It's about being able to understand what is it that we give to people when people work with us, what is it that they bring. So these are things that I'm also just starting to really think about and focus on, because as you build a company, I think the one thing that I'm starting to understand is, how can I bring more value to my current clients, to my current students? And sometimes it means that I can't be overloaded with work, right? And there is this whole thing of value and pricing. For me to be able to develop these retreat meditations and all this, I can't be having like a million other projects on board. I have to be able to just focus on one or two things and give the best possible value, which is also what people are paying for, right? So let me know if this resonates. I look forward to hearing your feedback. I'm playing around with figuring out when the best time to do live videos is, and I really think it may be in the mornings. So have a fantastic day. Bye.